everybody. Welcome to this next session at EDA Summit, where we're going to talk about events and API management coming together. So my name is Sean McAllister. I'm the Chief Technology and Chief Product Officer at Solace, and I'm joined by my friend Solace and Hakansson. And Ines, maybe do you want to introduce yourself and say a little bit about Gravitee?
Absolutely. Nice to be here for another year of EDA Summit. I think it's been 3 years, maybe two, since I was here last time. So pleasure speaking alongside you again, Sean. I'm Linus. I'm the Chief Product Officer at a company called Gravitee. Short story, we're an event native API management platform. I'll come and talk to who we are and what specifically we help customers with in the realms of Solace and APIs and events coming together after Sean has shown us what Solace is all about and how you create event API products. So again, thanks for being here and looking forward to showing you how the two platforms deliver on the title here.
Perfect. Thanks, Linus. So what we're going to walk through today is I'm going to give you a bit of context related to Solace, and then move in to the joint vision that we have with Gravitee about events and APIs, why they should be together, and how to make that happen specifically. So let's start off with a bit of context, right? Where what we see as a typical enterprise challenge is the need to connect the entire enterprise together, right, with all of your assets, and to provide real-time access to the information flowing within your enterprise. So whether that means connecting your own business applications that run your business, the analytics also that you need to run your business, the new applications and services that you create to differentiate your business, legacy applications, your remote stores, factories, distribution centers, IoT things. And you want to do this in a way that is very simple and real time, and have an infrastructure that is secure and reliable, and that is also agile, right? So that you can add new capabilities, Gen AI capabilities like LLMs, vector databases. You want to support RAG. And this is really difficult to do today. But, what if you can imagine a world where you have an infrastructure that allows you to connect all of these things together across hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, your edge, locations, all of your legacy apps, your new apps, and do this in a way that, is instantaneous delivery of information changes, that you can scale across your enterprise, that is resilient to failures, and of course supports all the security requirements that you have. And that's what the Solace integration and streaming platform does using event technology. And so within the platform, and effectively this platform gives you everything that you need to provide this kind of an infrastructure, starting at event brokers that do all the heavy lifting of moving events around to your applications, that you can federate together in an event mesh that covers your entire enterprise and allows distribution of events from anywhere to anywhere, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, to all of the connectivity needs that you have to integrate custom applications and legacy applications, SaaS applications, tools to monitor and observe your overall infrastructure. And then, of course, your ability to access and govern these events flowing over your event mesh. And that is going to be a key thing of what we're going to talk about today, is how you access and govern events and APIs together. And as you know, since you are here at EDA Summit, of course, the world is event-driven. Gartner is saying that. Your business is event-driven, right? It's made up of, purchases and shipments and new clients, new accounts being opened. And even to the point where Werner Vogels, right, told the world in December of 2022 at his keynote address that the world is asynchronous, and so you need to build systems that are asynchronous, no longer just RESTful APIs as part of your architecture. And for those of you familiar with the Gartner hype cycle, right, in 2022, the hype cycle showed EDA up here at the peak of inflated expectations. Fast forward 2 years, EDA continues its trend towards the plateau of productivity and mainstream. So that's all good, unlike Data Mesh, who this little red X says didn't make it. But then also look at event-driven APIs. which are also now starting to trend towards the plateau of productivity. And so this is, not necessarily a new thing in that we and Gravitee have very much believed that RESTful APIs and events as APIs need to come together, and that they're really two sides of the same coin. Because RESTful APIs are great for issuing commands to systems and for retrieving information when you want it. But they're not so good at finding out about changes that kind of just happen asynchronously behind the scenes. Because to do that, you have to use polling. And so you'd be constantly polling, sending in gets to your systems, which either creates load on your backend systems and your systems of record. So that's not good. And so what clients or people often do is they create query offload and caching, and you need to make that sure that is real-time accurate. You need to scale it and make it redundant and make it responsive. That's a lot of effort, a lot of energy, a lot of cost. And at the end of the day, it still doesn't ensure a great user experience. And in fact, MuleSoft produced a report recently that says 98.5% of polling returns no information. So events, on the other hand, are great at this, at capturing changes as they happen and distributing them or making them available to the applications that care instantly in real time. And that's why our view, Gravity's view as well, is that for modern, responsive, scalable applications, to give you a great user experience, you need both events and APIs. And so that's why they're two sides of the same coin. So now, given that events are the newcomer to all this, in order to make use of these events, you do have to define them and document them. You need to govern them appropriately, and you need to make them discoverable and accessible to those who might want to consume them. And for those of you who are familiar with APIs, of course, you'd say, well, it sounds pretty familiar, right? And that's true. APIs have done this for a very long time with API management. But I would argue that APIs are kind of like these colored marbles. They have a lot in common, right? They all use the exact same protocol, which is HTTP. You have the same verbs. The addressing is the same with URIs. So they're all request reply. So independent of gateway technologies, APIs are very, very similar. Events are not so similar. So at a technology level, all these eventing, they all have topics and subscriptions. But if you look at Kafka, topics are very different than MQTT and AMQP and Solace. They have different message exchange patterns. They have different parameters. So they're not actually at all as similar one to the other, and they're not similar to RESTful APIs. And so this is why, analysts like Ventana have said that event management software is in fact critical as a component for your real-time streaming application. So you do need event management, right? So that organizations can discover and govern, like we talked about, their various events. And Gartner agrees, and they go one step further, and I'll just read this, right? It says that software engineering leaders are tempted to use API management tools for event-driven systems, but the tools lack the key features to be able to manage events. And that's why you should use specifically an event management capability for that. So again, if you kind of go back and look at the evolution of some of these technologies where REST gateways have existed for quite some time, and really REST has become so popular, largely, I would argue, because of the capabilities of portals that allowed humans then to, document, discover, have access to those APIs. And eventing space and event brokers have existed for a long time, but there have not really been any capabilities to manage these events flowing over brokers. And so we saw that over 2 years ago, and that is why we built the industry's very first event portal. And an event portal is like an API portal, but it's purpose-built for events. And Solace's event portal exists really to help you build EDA apps faster, but with the type of enterprise governance that you need. So that means it gives you the ability to discover the events that are available in your enterprise, to design your applications so that you can know for a given app what events they publish and they consume, what schemas they carry, and to use Async API as a standard to code gen your application, and then provide authorized access, deploy your applications and configure your brokers, audit your broker configuration, and then provide information on how well you're using your EDA. So that's specifically for events, but remember I said that events and APIs being two sides of the same coin and that applications need both. And so why is that? So let's talk about an order management system, right? So you want to be able to sell your products and you define an API so that your partners can build apps that allow you to sell more of your product. So in this case, your customers want to be able to search your products and look at the catalog, what's there, what's in inventory, and REST is perfect for that, right? As people do today. And then, of course, you want to do this to place an order. Great, you use REST. But now if you want to find out the progress of your order, right? Has it been picked? Has it been shipped? Is it stuck at the border or something like that? These are all events. These are things that happen in the background. And you could poll to find out about that. Or you could use events. And you could have your internal systems send out events as they happen to be delivered to external applications. So we see many people want to pull events and APIs together for this reason, and you don't want to have your developers go to multiple places to find out about them. You want a single unified management capability for that groups together events and APIs so that you can have one place to go to access this infrastructure that provides a great user experience at a much lower cost to you in the background. And that is why from a Solace product point of view, as we have Event Portal that manages all these events flowing over your event mesh, you can group events together into event APIs and then make them available to common catalogs, such as Gravitee, which is what we're going to talk about and demonstrate here today. So the workflow becomes that you create and you curate and you make available events in the Solace Event Portal that are specific to the Solace technology. Then what you do is you import them into the Gravitee catalog and make them available to developers via the Gravitee developer portal. And so that you have events and APIs documented together, accessible together in just one place. So with that, we're now going to proceed to a quick demo of how these products all work together. So here we are in PubSub Plus Cloud in our console, and here you can see the Event Portal, which is the only thing I'm going to be talking about today. And within Event Portal, we have 4 components. We have the designer that allows you to design various aspects of your EDA, your applications, your events, your schemas, and a few other things. The catalog that allows you to do searches and find these things. Runtime Event Manager that shows you what types of events are deployed in what environments, what versions, etc. And then the KPI dashboard that tells you how well you're doing in your event-driven adoption. So if I go into Designer here, one of the things that you see is a whole bunch of domains because you carve up your IT space into different domains. And if I look at for example, the manufacturing supply chain optimization, you see the things that I was talking about where you define applications, events, schemas, a bunch of other things, some descriptions. And this is where Event Portal helps you do things like enforce the fact that topics must be unique. That's a choice that you make to enforce. And that all events need to have topics that start with Acme Manufacturing SC for this manufacturing supply chain domain. So these are the types of conventions that you can enforce to have proper governance. Now, if I click into this, you can see here, I'll back out a little bit, a graphical representation of applications in your domain, like the manufacturing execution system, and events, the smaller bubbles, these engineering complete events. And you can see that the engineering complete event with this arrow is consumed by your manufacturing execution. And that one produces with this arrow a product complete and, production line stopped events. And I can do things like if I double click, I can create a new application and give it a name, and I can pick an event here and associate it with my app, do a bunch of things like that. I don't want to pollute this, so I'll get rid of this and quickly here. But I can look at an event, this product complete event, can open that up, and I can go right from this graph and go and look at it. I can see the topic, description. You can manage the life cycle into different states, so I can release it for other people to consume. I click out of here, and of course, I can see the schema that's associated with it, right? So what data does this event carry? Hopefully, the description tells you the business moment in time in which it was created. If I go back to a list view, like I was saying, you can see all kinds of information about the applications, the events, and the schemas for your EDA. And that's how you manage the entire life cycle, definition, everything. And you can, as I say, go to catalog and do your searches. But when you want to make these available, these events available to the outside world, how do you do that? How do you curate that? And how do you create a common REST API and event API together? So let's talk about that. So here I am in a different domain with an event portal. And what I want to do is I have this stock update service, this application, and there are 3 events related to that happens related to stock that I want to expose to my business partners, right? A new stock price I want to tell people about, the fact that the quantity has changed, and when something has shipped. I want to be able to do that. These 3 events. Now, within Event Portal, if I look at all of the events here in that domain, you can see that I have many, many events that are defined, but there's only these 3, this new stock price, stock quantity update, and stock shipped update events that I want to expose to the outside world. So how do I do that? Well, what I do is I, over here, create an event API, right? That only has those 3 events. And so here's my stock API that I go into, and I can see that my stock API here has the 3 events that I talked about, not, the 10 that exist, but just these 3 that I want to curate and make available to my business partners. And I create an event API as effectively the contract of the events that you can be consumed, right? Now, these set of events, might want to make them available in a dev environment and make the same ones available in a production environment, so that as new suppliers and new partners come on board, we can test them out in the dev environment, but then they can connect to the production environment for real data. So how do I do that? Well, if I back out here, so these event APIs can be grouped into or made available via an event API product. And so if I look at my stock API product and I zoom into that, I can see right here that my stock API product has the stock API available. And these are my 3 events that I defined. And I can say, for example, that this is for a development environment. So I only have 10 megabytes of storage. That's all I'm allocating. And I'm going to make it available through this specific Gravitee development environment, right? And I have a separate event API product with more space for my production environment, okay? So what I do, like I say, is I take events, curate them together into event API products, or into event APIs, and I can make an event API available in the development environment or in the production environment via event API products. So now what I've done, if I come back to this, I've done the first step of creating, curating, documenting the events that I want to expose to the outside world. And so now I'm going to hand it over to Linus to talk about how that exposure actually happens in the Gravitee platform. Linus, why don't you give us a demo of that?
Very good. Thanks for that, Sean. Very cool how you were able to create that event API product for stocks. And now we'll see how we can expose this event API product in a unified developer portal for developers to consume and discover and get access to any API and event that you might live in your organization. So Gravitee's platform has a lot of different interfaces. We're mainly going to be in this API console interface where platform engineers and API and event owners would be listing their topics and approving any subscription requests, etc. And then we're also going to be exploring the developer portal. So this is where our event API product for stock will be visible and developers will be able to sign in, discover, and subscribe to those events. So how is this technically possible? Well, with Gravitee, and I'm going to introduce what we do in a few moments, but we have our own gateway. It can sit on top of Solace, it can sit on top of REST APIs, it can expose a lot of different type of interfaces. But we also allow other gateways, such as Amazon or Azure or Apigee or IBM, as well as other event brokers, such as Solace, to be invited into this single management interface of Gravitee. So at the moment, you can see a lot of different APIs, typically REST APIs or other message level APIs running on our gateway. We can also see APIs that run on Amazon API gateway, and we can see this concept here of federated. So that's what we kind of want to achieve for our Solace events. So to do that, what I've done is I've created a Solace integration. And that Solace integration is the glue between the event portal that Sean just demonstrated and the Gravitee control plane. So in here, what I will be doing is I will be clicking this Discover button. So what happens now is we discover all the event API products that live in that event portal. So we can see our stock API is in here. So I'll be importing all of those different event products. So I will be using the one called stock API right here. So we can see the name, the description, and the version that Sean was using has made it over here to Gravitee. But optionally, we can also add more descriptions. So we can add things like labels that will be transparent into the developer portal. We can add different categories to make it easier to navigate in the developer portal. I'm going to save this for now, and I'm also going to be publishing this into the developer portal, basically with the intent of making this discoverable for my internal or partners or customers potentially. Now, there's a couple of other cool things that we augment on top of the Solace Event API product. One of the things is the API score. Before we show that, though, I want to show you what we actually have in terms of the things brought over from Solace. So the plan, we also have a plan in Solace Event API product with some different characteristics. We're going to be subscribing to this plan as a developer. We have the documentation, the async API specification that was generated by the Solace platform that we can augment if we want to. We can go and add other types of documentation, such as Markdown, if we want to extend the documentation of this API. But we can actually also see the scoring quality of this particular event API product. You can upload your own rules, or we can use the out-of-the-box ones that looks at, for example, your async API specification to make sure that it's adhering to the best practices of your specific industry. But now what we'll be doing is we're just leaving this published to the developer portal, and we'll be seeing how a developer will be discovering and getting access to this particular API. Taking a pause there, making sure I didn't miss anything. That's pretty much it. Okay, so I'll take action in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so let's switch over to the developer portal. So we're now at the landing page. Let's assume that we're wearing the hat of a developer or a partner that's wanting to discover the different APIs and events that live in this organization of Acme, a fictional company around shipment and distribution in this particular scenario. I might go to the catalog here, and I'll be presented with a couple of different categories. We obviously classified our event API product in this events and topics, so we expect to see it over here. So here we have the stock API. We can see some different characteristics. We can see the async API documentation here. If we wanted to, we can raise maybe a support ticket or request more information from the owner, or maybe rate this particular event API product. So there's a lot of different interactions between API providers and consumers that we can engage with. Now, in our situation, what we want to do is obviously getting access to this broker and consuming updates about stock prices, new prices of the stocks effectively. So what I could do is I can copy and paste the topic. I can go and copy and paste the connection here. And in this situation, it's configured with MQTT instead of SMF or AMQP, which Solace also supports. And I can, of course, open something like Postman and try to connect to this broker with this particular topic. But by default, I'm not going to be allowed to do so because I don't have the right credentials and subscription and authentication to do so. That's what we're going to sort out. So I'm going to hit the subscribe button here. I'm going to see the same sort of concepts that Sean just showed of the actual plan that we're exposing this event API product with in terms of spool size and if it's guaranteed or not guaranteed messaging and so forth. So that's one I'm going to be selecting. Then I can select an application. So an application is basically the identity and credential holder for the entity that is accessing the broker. So I'm going to use an existing application here that I'm managing in the developer portal. I'll show what that looks like as well in a couple of moments. And I'm now just going to go ahead and make that request. So putting back the hat of an API or event owner, I can come in here to the console. I'll have a new task here that says that this application wants to subscribe to this particular event API product. Now I can reject that if I want to, and I can also validate the subscription, and which is what I will do in this particular case. Maybe I'll say something like, congrats, you now have access to this particular event API product. So what actually happens now is that the right access and authorization is provided on the event broker, and the application owner, so I'm here in my Edge application, I have my client ID, I have my client secret, I should now be able to actually access that data from Solace. Now, in this situation, we've configured the Solace Event Broker with OAuth 2 authentication, and it's actually validating that token against the Gravitee access management capability, which has an authorization server and can generate and validate tokens, multi-factor authentication, biometric authentication, and other cool authentication experiences. So what I will do here is I will copy and paste my my application credentials. I'll go into Postman, just to use to get an an access token using the authorization code flow. So I'll put in here the gateway URL of the Gravitee access management component, as well as the client ID and client secret that I have here. So what I'll do now is I'll get it up, and first thing I have to sign in. So I'll be using a username and password here. I could be using biometric authentication, single sign-on, and all different types of authentication capabilities. But in this situation, I just want to set up a quick demo that shows how we can quickly get a token that will be validated by the Solace Event Broker. So I'm copying that, and I'm heading back into my my MQTT client impersonator right here. And I'm putting that token into the authorization towards the broker. And next, I'm going to be hitting connect. So now we can see that we actually subscribed to this particular event as part of this event API product. So just to show how this actually is working from a runtime perspective, I'll quickly head over to the Solace try it mode, just to simulate me connecting to the event broker and firing off a update here. So maybe new price, $13. So this is probably not Bitcoin or something like this, probably something else. And I'm hitting that publish button, and we can see that now it comes through. Now, what I can do, of course, is I can go in here as the owner of this and say, actually, I do not want this subscription to longer be available. So I'm going to close this subscription for this particular Edge application, and they should no longer be allowed to use this. So you can see we're disconnected from the broker. And if I try to reconnect, I'm not going to be allowed to do so. So that's a quick demonstration of how you can expose event API products from Solace into one unified portal for APIs and events across any gateway and broker with Gravitee. So before I let you all go, I just wanted to introduce more properly who Gravitee is and what we do in this market. So Gravitee has been around since around 2016, but we really started growing the organization and business in the last 3-4 years. So this year we became a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for API management, and we also debuted as a strong performer in the Forrester Wave for API management. So we are a very trusted enterprise-grade API management solution that has a unique twist. We call that event-native API management. So while Gravitee is standing on a foundation of one of the strongest API management solutions out there, we coined this term of event-native, which is also being used by Gartner analysts and other people to illustrate kind of mindset shift in the industry. The purpose of event-native for Gravitee is to tell the world that we believe that event-driven APIs, whether it's Solace or something else, needs to be treated as first-class citizens in the life cycle of API management. It needs to have the same developer portal capabilities with triad capabilities, documentation like async API, cloud events, and other standards, just as has been the case for REST APIs. It needs to have policy application, maybe transformations, analytics, subscription management, everything around traditional API management that was exclusive for REST applied to also event-driven APIs. And in Gravitee, we do that with Solace in two different ways that I'm going to be coming to in a few moments. One of them is through what we call protocol mediation, and the other is what we call third-party federation, where we bring in the control plane of Solace, control plane of Confluent, or Amazon, Azure, and other API gateway technologies. The protocol mediation means that Gravitee can expose event brokers such as Solace to clients that want to use non-asynchronous or non-event broker protocols. So we can expose Solace, for example, as a REST API. We can expose it as WebSocket, webhook, server-sent event, different web-based protocols, but still maintain the same sort of transformations, rate limiting, quota management, access control, routing across topics, as you would have been for a traditional REST API effectively. Now, with Solace specifically, we have this capability of federation, as I've shown in the demonstration. With federation, we bring in the events from platforms like Solace in one unified developer portal for subscription management and access control and documentation and discovery. But the client application invokes the Solace event broker immediately. With protocol mediation, you still have developer portal, you have subscription management, you have async API, but the traffic goes through the Gravitee gateway, allowing you to do transformation. We have more than 60 different policies across security, logging, analytics, transformation, schema validation, and so forth. And we allow the client to use other web protocols, such as webhook, allowing clients to subscribe, for example, for stock updates that gets a callback URL to their webhook URL, for example. That is Gravitee, and that is what Gravitee and Solace does together to unify API and event streams. Sean, hopefully this gives the audience an idea of how Solace and Gravitee coming together brings that unified experience. Any last closing words from yourself?
Great demo, Linus. Really good. It's great to see how these products are coming together and how you can manage events and create them the way they should be created from a technology point of view, but then exposed in a unified way, both events and APIs across all of your different API gateways. And so that's why, again, from our perspective, from Gravitee's perspective, real-time modern applications need both events and APIs for a good user experience, but developers want a single place to go to access this. And this is what Solace and Gravitee are bringing to the market. So thank you very much, Linus, for the demo and for being here. And for everyone watching this, enjoy the rest of EDA Summit.
Pleasure being here. Thanks, everyone.